It's all fun and games. Oh, no, it's all poops and giggles until someone giggles and poops. All right. Welcome to the Barry Beat Podcast, live from Fly in the Wall Production Studios. Did I make a mistake on that? I feel like I made a mistake.
No, you didn't make a mistake.
I always feel like I make a mistake.
Well, you didn't.
Tonight
you did a great job, Michael.
I know. I am amazing.
Oh, gosh.
And with us, we have Raylene and Alice. How are you ladies doing this evening?
Good evening.
We also have one other lady with us that is, of course, with us. We will have to let you know. It's Leah. She's down there. She's just resting in the corner, being a good dog. So just want to let everybody know that. She's not going to opine on anything, though.
She's not going to weigh in.
No, she's not going to weigh in on anything unless we start talking about, treats or something. I don't know. She doesn't even like, she doesn't like playing ball. I'm like, oh, wait. Yeah, she does. She likes playing ball with Barb, which makes me really angry. I'm not going to lie. Kind of makes me a little
it doesn't
angry.
make you angry. It makes you jealous. There's a difference.
It does. It makes me very jealous.
It doesn't make you angry. It makes you jealous. You're actually happy that she plays ball because that's good for her. But you're jealous.
Yes. So thank you, Barb, for making me jealous.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, have you seen Jury Duty?
It's a movie?
It's a show.
Netflix or?
It's on Amazon.
Amazon.
I have not.
Amazon. Oh, yes.
I have not.
Oh, my goodness.
I have.
So amazing.
So I should.
If you guys haven't watched Jury Duty, we'll get to the city business shortly, but we've got to take this detour. Jury Duty on Amazon. If you are an Amazon Prime member, it is well worth it.
And you can also get it on Freevee.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
Freevee, Freevee. It's hilarious.
It is really.
And it's called The Jury.
No, Jury Duty.
Jury Duty.
Jury Duty.
Okay.
And so it's a story. They did a Craigslist ad for people to come in and be on a live show where they're dealing with real life jury duty. And everybody's an actor or actress or actee or whatever you're supposed to use
now.
For
Entertainer.
Entertainer, except for one guy. One guy is not in on the joke. And it's hilarious on the things that they go through. I mean, it's really funny.
And it's the one guy, all the shows? Or this
the
is
whole
just one show?
One show, Jury Duty.
Oh.
And it's all one guy who is not
aware.
Was that kid flipping us off?
I don't know. I wasn't paying attention.
He was either waving or flipping us off, which would have been
We'll
kind of funny.
presume he was waving with all five fingers.
I hope he was waving with all five fingers.
Was it the little one on the bike that keeps going by?
Yeah, it was one of the little ones on the bike.
Oh, well,
I mean,
they're behaving.
I'm not going to lie. As he was coming down the road, I was getting Leah out of the Jeep, and all I could hear him was like dropping the F-bomb left and right. I'm like, oh my. Oh my word.
Oh my goodness, Michael.
You must must be this tall to drop the F-bomb. And he doesn't meet it.
No, he doesn't meet the
Neither does JD.
No. Yeah, that's true. So anyway, Jury Duty, it's this guy, like I said, he is completely unaware that this is all fabricated to see his reaction. And some of the stuff is like, the one scene that really got me hooked on it was when one of the guys talking to him says, "How do you get out of this?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, in Family Guy, Peter said that he was a racist, and that got him out of jury duty." So the guy that he was talking to, when the judge asked him how to get out of jury, or asked him if he had anything that he wasn't, that would make him go out of the jury duty pool, and he said, "Well, I'm a racist," and and it was like this awkward silence. Mind you, there's like people of color all around him.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the judge started pressing him and was like, "Are you really?" And then he said, "No, I'm really not. And someone told me to do that." And he's like, "Who told you?" And you could see that like tension. It's really funny, folks. I highly recommend it, Jury Duty.
But it's not that far afield from reality, because people come up with all kinds of excuses. I've been called for jury duty a couple of times, and there are folks that just kind of sit there and cringe and say, "Are they really saying that?" And that's the reality of it. It's not that far afield.
Okay, so here's a poll for everybody that's watching. Let me know if you've been called for jury duty and how long you've been a registered voter living in Vermont and how many times you've been called for jury duty. Because I have lived in Vermont for almost 40 years, and I've been a registered voter since 1998, and I have never been called for jury duty. Never. You? How about you?
I never have.
Oh.
But I have. Yeah. I actually have a good friend who has been called numerous times.
And how many times have you been called, Alice? Twice. Here in Vermont.
Yeah.
And there is a pause because Leah is moving.
It almost sounded like she vomited, though. Which really would not have been. Oh, keep talking. Talk amongst yourselves.
Okay, talk amongst ourselves.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Leah is just wanting to get out from under the desk. She is tired of being cramped under there, that's all. Oh, my heavens.
I wouldn't want to be under the desk.
I wouldn't either.
Yes.
It's hot and yucky under there, and God knows what else is under there. So, yeah.
Yeah, but jury duty is really an exciting experience just the same. Even if you're not picked for a jury, which, because of my status in life being a school administrator, lawyers don't want me on a jury. Mm-hmm. So, but just the going through the process is a real good experience with being part of being a citizen, and that's part of the whole role. So it's pretty exciting.
Well, yeah. Let me tell you, that was pretty exciting as well. There's nothing better than being afraid of your dog having an accident. So, really sorry about that, folks.
It's okay.
Anyway, so moving on to the city council packet, we'll start there.
Sounds good.
We've got, let's see. We are going to have an update on the States Motel issue. So I know that Aired Out spoke about that, correct?
Yes, we did. We had, I'm going to forget his name, and I feel horrible. The gentleman from Good Sam's.
Rick DeAngelis?
Yes, Rick came in and spoke with us. And so we did a full hour show with he and Heather Slayton. And I feel like we've done a couple other things as well, or JD did. And yeah, I mean, and I still have the same question. Why, with only a few weeks to go, are we just trying to figure it out now? And everybody knew it was going to come to an end, and there was no way it was going to last forever. And so I don't know why we're last minute trying to figure it out.
So I'm not...
And I heard that more funding was given, and I hope that doesn't mean that they're going to extend stuff, because then we're just kicking the can more and more down the road. Yeah. And the inevitable is that these folks need to find a different situation, and whether it be in another home, like Tom said, family, friends, couch surf, maybe. And then in the other respect, there are some people that truly need the help and need to be in that situation. There are a lot of single moms with children in those hotels, and some of those moms and some of those families actually work. I mean, they work. They have jobs. They just don't have enough money to make it all work. And it's my understanding that there is no availability in Highgate, Green Acres, and wherever the low-income housings are.
And the thing is, there are, across the country, this is not just a problem here in Barre or here in Vermont or here in New England. It's a problem across the country. And there are a lot of solutions that various cities and states have come up with. And one that incredibly impressed me was in the city of Detroit. They built, now and understanding that it takes time and money and sponsorship and all of that, but they built tiny houses, 250 square feet. The largest is 400 square feet. And individuals are able to use their subsidies, use their own, if they're working, and it's $1 a square foot to rent in these tiny houses. But the individuals are off the street. There's also advice and counseling that goes with the neighborhood, and it's been extremely successful. And it's something that you can't look at in the short term. It should have been if someone were looking for it, it should have been started months ago to look at it. But just the same, there are all kinds of ideas, and it just breaks my heart to hear that the only thing we can come up with is handing out tents and putting people on the ground in places. I mean, that is so. If nothing else, it's demeaning to have that happen to folks that are already struggling.
Yeah, and I have said for years, many years, and I know that this is a sticking point for a lot of people as well. But I, in many ways, believe that the Department of Corrections holds some responsibility here, in the fact that when they release, prior to anyone being released, they should understand and get help with services. They should understand what is available. They should be talked to prior to, kind of like just be prepared to reintegrate and not just be sent out to nothingness when you've had everything for so long. And sometimes I think that has created a situation as well, because the hotels became their next safety. It the same as prison. And so it's almost like it was easier. So I think that they have a little responsibility in the whole mess as well. And I think that they have a responsibility because a lot of people supervised are here in the city to help us figure this situation out. I don't think that it should be strictly a city problem and fix.
It's universal. The cities, the towns, the counties, the state, they all need to enjoin to look at this problem and say, what do we need to solve it? The working poor, they need housing.
Right, and they need they need our help. They do need our help, and I'm very open to helping anybody that wants to help themselves.
And individuals who find themselves in a homeless situation for whatever reason, that just must be a tremendous stress. And individuals need a hand up. And now all of a sudden it just seems like they're pulling the floor out from underneath them.
And then we get into the topic that a lot of them are, struggling with addiction issues. Yep. And then so my mind always goes back to Jenna's Promise in Johnson, and what could we do to maybe turn one of these hotels into something like Jenna's. The people pay their way by working for the different industries, companies that Jenna's owns, the family owns, and they operate. But if the city was going to buy a house, we have all kinds of things in the city that could be done for jobs. And so, and that in return gives somebody a sense of self-worth. And then I think further pushes them into a better space.
Value. Self-value is really important. And if you're contributing to fixing up the property that you're going to be living in, such as Habitat for Humanity, it means so much more to everybody who's at it. Plus, learning a skill.
Yeah.
So if you need to, if folks need to move to somewhere else, or they find housing somewhere else, they take that skill with them, and that is incredibly important too. To have that, regardless of age, whoever they are, young, middle-aged, older. A skill is always a valuable thing.
I agree.
So I do see here that the municipal response, according to the packet, says there's, opening temporary shelter, which would be the BOR, or actually it wouldn't be the BOR, it would be the Barre Auditorium. Under right conditions, and only if the state fully staffs, fully secures, and fully mitigates impact on Civic Center complex, and under no circumstances extended beyond September 1. And then, of course, there's providers have provided camping equipment to people who will be losing housing. So, question for the two of you. How do you feel about camping in the parks?
I'm not okay with it. I'm just not. I'm sorry, but I'm not. I think that we have worked super hard to develop this reputation and new kind of vision for the city, and I don't think that that's part of the vision, and I think that it's going to push us backwards.
So technically our parks are closed from dawn till dusk unless authorized by city council. So I have no intentions on authorizing that, which would mean that it's a violation of ordinance, which is, there's fines associated with that. And of course, no one hopefully is in support of allowing people to camp at Hope Cemetery.
Are there...
a couple years ago, there was a counselor that was upset that we broke down campsites in Hope Cemetery. And my opinion on that is there are places that you can try to camp. Hope Cemetery is not one of them. I got a couple houses they could try to camp at.
Or yeah, me too. But no cemetery, as far as I'm concerned.
No.
But
you're talking about
are there any
ones.
spaces within the city? I believe I know of a few spaces in the city, within the city limits, that could possibly hold tenters, and one of them would be, well, I don't know. I guess there are places in the city,
but there are just so many concerns that go along. First of all, I think it's demeaning to say we're taking you out of these hotels. Here's a tent. I think that really is demeaning. But also there are health concerns, people living close to one another, sanitary concerns, fire concerns. If people are going to roast their little hot dogs, over their sterno stove on a dry day, there are all kinds of concerns that would really be scary.
I'll say this. In the fullness of heart, I assume, we opened up the ability for people to go into hotels. Fullness of heart. There are consequences to making something available like that. This is a consequence. Our community has done that, and now we're going to have to deal with the fallout of giving
Which is
free
sad.
housing
It's
to people.
horrible. The whole situation is horrible, because if the housing was given, the housing should have been given under certain circumstances, with in mind that while you're here, these are the things that we're going to expect of you, and if you can't keep up with these things, then you need to go. And I think that they wouldn't be as full, and two, you would have encouraged a lot of those people to feel self-worth and to progress in their own way. And I do honestly know of, and there are people in the hotels that work and just cannot make it.
Right. And I think as far as municipalities are concerned, and that the municipalities includes state, county, local, city, whatever, it comes down to the old saw that, failure to plan is planning to fail. And so now here we are at the brink. We've come to the brink of this, and everybody's in a panic.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly will be an interesting conversation.
It's very sad.
It
The
is.
whole thing is very sad, and I think that it really sucks that we've gotten ourselves into this predicament. Statewide, not just Barre, but statewide.
One of the problems I think that or not problems, but one of the things that we're going to find out pretty quickly is that, people that were couch surfing before are going to go back to couch surfing, because it's that's
And
what I
maybe
think.
some people will move back to the states that they came from. Maybe some people will move out of the city and the state altogether. There was a lot of transients during the time through COVID, and maybe that will happen as well. We don't really know.
Yeah.
Hopefully there aren't as many people as is believed to be that truly end up in that situation, and hopefully that number is a more realistic number that we can say, okay, what can we do to help these people? And there's no more room in any of the housing authority spaces. What can we do to help these 20, 30, whatever it is, people?
For those that are watching, drop your comments in so that we can see what those say and maybe read them live, because it would be nice to know what people are thinking.
It would be.
Yeah. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about the TIF update. White and Burke are presenting an idea of them creating a committee, basically, or group to try to find things to use our TIF district for. And for those that don't know what the TIF is, it's a tax increment financing district. It's our downtown. It was created years ago under the mayorship of Tom Lozon, who brought our city forward to where it is now. And, he's done an amazing job. And I'll just say that because I got much more to say about that, and I'm really glad he's back on council.
Me too.
And so anyway, the White and Burke are thinking about doing that to figure out how we can use those funds. And there's what the tax increment financing was. It's basically took a snapshot of taxes, what they were back in 2012 or 13, something like that. And then any increments above that are increased, that would be something that we could use for the education fund towards development, which would be on our our infrastructure. So, that's what that is. And it would be nice to be able to follow our plan, which is redo Merchants Row, but I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. Hopefully we can. So they're going to be presenting that. Yeah. And then, of course, we've got the Community Investment Ordinance, because I'm so happy about that one. You know that one, the ordinance for. So, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna laugh a little bit about it, because I was talking to somebody, and it talks about how we give like basically discounts. First of all, let's just be honest, okay, straight up. $200,000 the minimum amount before this starts implementation. And I think that maybe happens once every 3 years at the max, right? So the policy really isn't going to have that much of an impact. And, you have to have a certain amount, or not certain amount, but there's a percentage of people of color, and it actually lists them out.
Women,
Native Americans, blah blah blah. It goes on and on. Women is one of them.
Yep.
But I was thinking to myself, well, I mean, what's that? I mean, can you really define that? Yeah. Anyway, I'm half tempted to ask that question if we could have some definitions of each one of those. Because I think that's really important. I mean, does Elizabeth Warren count as a Native American? I mean, that's a good question that, would go towards that stat. Does she?
but and I think there's one step up from that level of thinking, and that is the question, why? Why are we doing this? Is it something will benefit the city? Is it something that we're lacking in right now, or the city is lacking in right now? Has anybody answered the question, why?
Yeah, that is a really good question that probably won't get answered tomorrow night.
And I think that, AGC weighed in and others have weighed in that it's going to drive costs up, and it's going to make contractors maybe not want to bid a job because they don't want to have to jump through all of the hoops required.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm sure that we'll see how that goes. Then we will also be having the ARPA Community Innovation Fund presentations. So there was quite a few that were left over. So we'll be making the decision. There'll be presentations, obviously, so folks should show up and take a look at those presentations. I don't know if authorized funding. So it looks like we're gonna authorize the funding, which I think we should probably, instead of just authorizing it, probably should let it sit for a little while, because one presentation and then voting on it sounds something like what we did for the Wheelock building. Wasn't really impressed with that.
Right. Well, because if you do things in lightning speed, then you don't have to listen to your constituents, right?
That is a very good
Right.
point. That does work like that.
Oh, well, it's all done now. Sorry.
We will, on our consent agenda, be talking about the replacement of the pool house, which is going to be bid. It was bid by
Barslow
Construction. That's right. They're going to be fixing up the pool roof.
Nice. They are presenting sponsor of the ARPA podcast.
They are.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, we can switch gears over to the BUUSD. Do we want to switch over to that? Because that also is this week on Wednesday. And we're going to have the second reading and final reading of the personnel and recruitment selection appointment backgrounds, which sounds so exciting, doesn't it? Is everybody excited about this?
Extremely.
Does get very excited.
I don't even know what I'm going to do.
You don't know?
I'll be just...
How about you, Alice? Alice is like...
You always want to have the best and the brightest.
Yeah.
And whether there's a policy or not, you want to have individuals working in your school who are foursquare for children, for students, who know their stuff, and who are happy to be here.
I agree. I'm not sure that we should be putting into policy like procedures, but we actually passed that on a 4-3 vote last time to remove the procedure for training. Now, we also are going to have a conversation about something that you're aware of, being a former board person, the FY23 admin increases, which was before me, and it was a structure that was set up for admin, and they got some pretty hefty raises, and I'll let you go on about that if you want to.
Well, I think again, looking at the bigger picture of it, individuals who work in schools at the administrative level work very hard. I can speak to that from experience. There's no such thing as a 40-hour work week, and there's no such thing as a 5-day work week. It is literally 24/7 that the school is always on your mind. And so those individuals, because of their training, because of their experience, they need to be compensated well. That being said, there needs to be involvement between the board, which is the governing body of the schools, and the administration on how to accomplish that particular item, which is payment and salaries of administrators. And I think what got everybody kind of caught by surprise was that there was no discussion at the board level. It was just presented that here it is and here's what we're doing, and no preliminary indication that this was even being thought of, which in the past with other superintendents, there was always a discussion between the board and the superintendent as to what was coming up and how it was going to be handled. It was just literally handed out and said, here it is, and we're gonna pay as much as Chittenden County. Well, first of all, it's kind of a shock because we are not Chittenden County. We've never been Chittenden County, and we're not going to be Chittenden County. Yeah. So that was a bit of a head back, hello, what's going on here moment. And so I think that kind of got things off on the wrong foot, that there was no consideration between the administration and the board that this was in the planning stages. And then just to say it's done, we've told the administrators that these are going to be their increases in compensation for this year to bring them up to some kind of par, whatever the par was. And there was a lot of concern about that because, after all, this is public money. This is not something that comes privately to the schools and is the compensation for the administration. It's public money. And to suddenly have individuals getting huge, which appear to be huge, tens of thousands of dollar raises in a heartbeat, that didn't set quite right.
Yeah. And I know that it's been one of those things that Paul has been very, very unhappy about, given the fact that it didn't come through the board. It wasn't that he was disappointed with, he hasn't mentioned that he's disappointed with the,
it's a process thing.
It's the process thing for him.
That's really what it was. The whole time it was the process. Certainly the board is not in opposition to paying people for their skills and their abilities and their work. Mm-hmm. That was never the case. Mm-hmm. The case was to have it dropped on a board, that this is the way it's going to be, all done, finished, no discussion. Right. And I think that didn't set right. And it shouldn't set right because the board is the governing body of the school district, and these things really need to be made clear. And everyone needs to understand that before they go into it.
Right. It wasn't like they said that they were going to, across the board, give a 1% pay increase like they do at most jobs, National
Right.
Life, Blue Cross Blue Shield, the state of Vermont, cost of living increases might be a little more, but that wasn't the case.
Right. And this was out of character, shall we say, because in the past, in a negotiating year, the teachers negotiated a contract, and in most cases, the superintendent at the time said that he and his fellow administrators would take the same amount as whatever the teachers were doing. Mm-hmm. This was not. This was significantly more, significantly greater, and with not necessarily any greater requirements, job requirements. Mm-hmm. So that was a concern as well.
And when you say significantly more, do we know, like, are there any actual numbers out there so that we know yet, like, what an increase could have been? Like, what?
Yeah, this is the older increase, the one
the
that
matrix, the infamous matrix.
The matrix that was, and I don't remember the numbers. I do remember that it was like grand total of somewhere around $100,000 for how many admins?
Well, at the time, let's see, and I'm going back. I don't want to come up with a number.
Okay,
but
never mind.
But
somebody might be listening.
It was central office and the building level administrators.
Okay.
So
I'm sure somebody will.
But they were
post
significant raises.
Yeah.
That were.
Yeah.
And there was no
$100,000
standard to it either. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that everyone was getting 10%. There was no standard to it. There were bulk amounts of cash just awarded to various administrators to supposedly bring them up to neighboring school standards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me ask you, Raylene, is anybody posting anything on the Facebook page?
Commenting?
Yeah.
On the Barre
community fan page.
Yes.
There are people.
Yeah, we have some comments there. Yes, not about this topic, but when we were talking about the homelessness. Yes.
Well, guess what? I'm noticing that it is not coming through here. No wonder why JD doesn't answer my comments on Facebook.
Right, because we cannot see the comments.
See them.
No.
Wow. That's not cool.
No, that's why I always keep my phone on and going so that I can be aware of what's happening, because that happens all the time.
All right. So we will also be discussing board committee. That we're going to be discussing the board committees, which I'm assuming is partially because I threw kind of like a temper tantrum about the Roberts rules versus consent during the curriculum, or not curriculum, because I think that's also going to be another discussion where they want to end curriculum. Alice just like her eyes went whoa.
Well, my concern would be, if you're going to end anything, how are you going to keep the flow of information from the schools to the board? That is a huge part of what happens. That is actually a huge part of the superintendent's role, to keep that communication. So how is the board going to know how the kidlets are doing? How are they going to know that?
Maybe the superintendent prefer not have a board and just do everything by himself.
So
but the communication is such an important, and the transparency and the accountability, and are we meeting the strategic plan goals? The strategic plan goal, and I am so happy that strategic plan is in place, because the community came together to build that strategic plan. And one important piece of it is that by a certain date and time, there was a date assured that all third graders would be reading at grade level. Are our third graders reading on grade level right now as we come to the close of this year? Do we have any report from the third grade? Is there a report in this 170-page document that's being handed out for this board meeting? I don't think Chrysler and the United Nations have 170-page agendas. Can someone tell us if the third graders are reading at grade level? That's all I'd like to know, because that's in the strategic plan.
Well, I do know that it'll be also an interesting conversation. I hope that we don't lose the curriculum committee.
No.
Or what I really hope is that we actually modify it. When I originally pitched, what my first official pitch was to do not necessarily a curriculum, but more like an education outcome committee.
Yeah.
And I think that we certainly need that in the city, not just for, just to have it, but I think people are concerned in the city and town that our children are not being educated fully. And, having a committee to discuss that, the outcomes and figure out what's happening. Why are we really low in our proficiency scores?
And it's not just the test scores, and it's not just the wee ones, the elementary students. How many of our students who graduate and go to college because they have chosen that route don't stay in college because they're not prepared for it? They don't understand the rigors of college.
You just triggered me.
Has proficiency-based grading made our students any stronger as they go out into the world, whether they go to post-secondary, whether they go to a job, whether they take a technical course, whatever it is? What has proficiency-based done for our kids?
So I would contest to you that, just as a side note for college education, I don't think we should be pushing kids into college education anymore. I think that was a total disappointment I just think it was absolutely terrible for us to do that. Kids went to college, they get these degrees, underwater basket weaving, and then they end up applying at, companies thinking that, well, I should make so much more money, but have no experience. And then they're angry because they're making, $15 an hour as a barista or barista,
coffee maker.
Coffee
Right.
person. I should, it sounds like a barista. That's not really appropriate because I don't think that's not really a low end job. That's actually,
it's a skill.
It is a skill, actually.
Yeah.
But that's what the joke is, the barista or barista. Broast. Somebody please let me know what the correct terminology is. But that being said, I think we need something more than just, deleting the curriculum committee. We should have, because I think
educational outcomes is the perfect solution because that's what the board needs to hear about it. All right, so here, curriculum is a way to get to the educational outcomes. You have a solid curriculum, and out of that solid curriculum comes an instructional plan, comes instructional practices, and so those are all leading up to educational outcomes. Are we meeting what we planned for our educational outcomes? Are our third graders reading at grade level by the end of their third grade year? That's an educational outcome. It's not a curriculum issue. It's an educational outcome. Sorry, I get a little excited about education because I love it.
Well, I understand that.
Do you think, or do you see there being any talk about the recent situation at Spalding High School?
Ooh, you talking about the fight?
Yes,
big
I
fight?
am. That many people are talking about. We've heard lots of rumors. I don't know that anybody knows truly what has happened except for the individuals involved, maybe. But I'm just wondering if the new board is going to be more open to hearing from parents in the situation, or because we know in the past that that hasn't been the case.
Yeah.
And I have been asked that a couple of times over the last week or few days anyways, if I thought that that was a possibility with the new structure of the board. And I said, I hope so. Please participate.
So it's funny that you mentioned that. And believe me, folks, she did not set me up for this. Because I don't think she even knows that I sent the email. On Thursday, I sent an email to Chris and Giuliano that I want the Behavioral Ad Hoc Committee back on the agenda, and we need to have a conversation about it. Mm-hmm. I want 2 principals, 3 teachers. 1 principal has to be from BCEMS. Plug to BCEMS. Alice has got her hat. Mm-hmm. 1 principal, which would be obviously Brenda Waterhouse. 1 teacher from there, and then a principal from either Spalding or Barrytown, and 2 teachers from either Spalding or Barrytown or BCMS or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then 1 board member, because you need to have public involvement. And to tell me that you can't do it without compromising PII information or personal identifiable information is inaccurate.
You're not talking
Correct.
Personal. You're not.
Right.
You're not
You're
talking
situation.
Personal.
Correct.
Personnel or individuals.
Correct.
You are talking about
a circumstance.
What is the school practice?
Yep.
Not a policy, but what is the school practice that deals with a situation, any situation such as this, the bullying, the harassment, the fisticuffs, whatever it is, that deals with that, and what is the run-up to it, so that kids aren't punching one another, and they aren't sneaking around corners and saying horrible things to each other.
Right. And I still
say that we should go old school and have assemble. They should have assemblies and literally let the kids talk about it, just like they did when the All In for Barre and community members came and talked and talked and talked. Let the kids talk it out, and let the very few, because when you're talking about an entire student body, there are very few bullies. Let them get the impression from the few hundred others what little assholes they are, period. I mean, I'm sorry I'm putting it that way, but that's the way I feel about it. They have to know that that's not something that the rest of the body thinks is okay. They're not okay with it. They don't think you're cool. You may think you're cool,
because the school is a community.
Right.
And that nonsense will not be tolerated in
by the community.
And that has to come from the administration, from the teachers, from their fellow students,
and from their community.
That when you come into this building, the goal is that you're going to learn something, and you're here to learn. You're not here to be a crazy person. You're not here to pick on those who you perceive as to be weak or lesser, because there is no one who's weak or lesser. Everybody is here to learn.
Right. And I feel like getting the kids involved is a good thing. And why are we treating them like little pieces of glass, like they can't be a part of the solution? That just shouldn't happen. I believe that that's what they need to do. I think they need to start doing it more. I think they need to let the students be an active part of what is happening around them and in their school, and not just as far as behavior and bullying, but I know many kids, like when I've known that a teacher has been treated horribly by a couple of students, this teacher that I know, and if only the rest of the students were given the opportunity to voice their opinions and what they thought of that, I think that would hold more weight than anything. I really do. Because I don't know about you, but when I was in school, I wouldn't have wanted everybody to think that I was a horrible person.
No, there should be no one who literally drags themselves to school because they are so intimidated by what's going on there.
No.
Everyone should be welcomed. Everyone should be part of the community, and everyone should have it right face forward that this is where you come to learn, and that's what we're doing. You are the learners. We will assist you in your learning. The teachers are prepared to do that. The administration is prepared to do that. Welcome to our community, and we're here to learn.
So I will say that there was some initial information that may not have been accurate, but at the end of the day, just for folks' information, and I'm not providing anything that's like secret confidential, because we don't actually get any secret confidential information on email.
Right.
Believe it or not. And so anyway, the fight happened like just after school, just a few yards away from the school property. There was so I actually saw the video, and it wasn't that it was given to me by anybody in the school system. I had to pull it from a third party to get it. And it was like a 5-second video of, it almost looked like The Outsiders. I mean, do you remember that scene from The Outsiders where like all the folks came up, and then like, there was one girl that
chucking and throwing.
Yeah. You saw it, because it literally, like, one girl did I think it was a girl. She
like
was
a somersault.
Yeah, it was a somersault. And I was like, were they going to Donnybrook?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that thought did cross my mind.
Yeah.
No, they wouldn't have gone there, because
No,
then
they would have known
never,
better.
They would have known better.
But
it was definitely, it was a pretty large thing. I don't, at the end of the day, it was a bunch of kids being stupid. And that's my take on it. I think it was as Danielle says, it was sad, right? And
it was sad. I mean, it happened when I was in school,
yeah,
too.
It happened.
It
We
just
all
did.
I mean, I was talking to someone that I graduated, and she was saying that, we've always had a behavioral issue. And
Right, it was just dealt with different then.
It was
because
dealt with
you
differently.
You were scared to death if your parents were going to find out,
Yeah.
because I would have gotten punished.
Yes.
Verbally, physically,
Yes, the whole gambit.
monetarily, like
But
everything.
The issue that I see with this is that it said it was going on throughout the day. And
Yes,
it
that's my
does
concern.
make me
Yeah, mine too.
It does make me question our policies that we have in place, whether or not those are effective at dealing with the troubles that we have today.
No,
right?
because parents and teachers alike don't dare to say anything anymore, because they fear just as much. They fear.
Yeah.
A teacher doesn't want to get fired because she told young Johnny that he better straighten himself out or else. And I will tell you that that's exactly what Dr. Will Gorin or Mrs. Tidd or any of them would, Mrs. Shadroy, any of them would have told us when we were in school. They would have said, you're in my room for detention after school. And they stayed there with us, or they weren't afraid to speak to us. And now I think that people are so concerned. We're so worried about hurting somebody's feelings, a child's feelings at that we don't. There's no discipline, and therefore there's no respect.
No, I would agree with that. I will say this, that when the conversation of a behavioral ad hoc committee does come up, if you are interested in, behavioral in our system, show up. The problem that happened last year was that there just wasn't enough votes to make that happen. And there's no reason why it shouldn't happen. We're talking about, committees are set up all the time. And there's no reason not to do that. So,
and just as the strategic plan committee came together, individuals from the community, individuals from the school came together said their piece, made their plan, moved on, put it in place, and now we're expecting reports from that. So how are we doing with making sure that our kids understand how to approach conflicts? And what it continues to amaze me is if these things, and this is not the first time, if these things have been going on all day in school, so that the point that the bubble breaks off school grounds and outside of school, what's being done? Who knows about it? Who's handling the daily activities that might be causing these stressors among kids? I'm continue to be flummoxed by that.
Yeah. Well, it's not on the docket for conversation tomorrow.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Or not tomorrow, Wednesday.
It should be.
It should be, but
It should be.
And maybe
And-
we'll pull it off.
Because we want the best for our kids. We want the best for our community. And certainly we all know things happen between students of all ages, teenagers, middle school, elementary. Things happen between kids. But it's how it is perceived, which is a big thing. And if this is perceived as a melee, then maybe we ought to think about that.
I'll say this. It's not working currently.
No.
So if it's not working,
Before we go, can you please answer Connie and let her know what behavior ad hoc committee does?
sure. So the purpose of the behavioral ad hoc committee would be to review the policies, the procedures, and
Implementation.
implementation
Right.
of those policies and procedures, and report back to the board to make changes. And that needs to happen. We need to have that fresh look at it, and see whether or not this is something
And I think
that
you should add
we should do.
students to that list.
Oh, most definitely.
That's not a bad idea. I might send that email
They
off
should.
there.
They really need to be involved.
But so with that, I think that's pretty much it. We do have nothing that I can think of that I almost said something.
Nothing that we should say, but lots that we could say.
There's always something we could say.
Yeah.
Well, I think
I want to
it's
wish
very
everyone a happy Memorial Day.
Happy Memorial
Yes,
Day. And
absolutely.
thank you to all the individuals who are current or veterans that have been on active duty, are still on active duty. That's very important because
Yes.
we are what we are because of them.
Absolutely. And we invite everybody to come down on Tuesday of next
Yes.
week for the Memorial Day parade and celebration.
Yep. And I think I'm probably going to say we'll cancel Barry Beat next week.
We can,
I would say we're going to cancel Barry Beat since it's
unless something
comes up,
hair-raising occurs
crazy happens.
during the week, which you never know around here,
That is true.
right? I could go home and say something that totally ruffles somebody's feathers, and then next week we'll have to talk about it.
Raylene
It's not like
ruffling
it's never happened
feathers.
before.
That would never happen.
No,
But
not me.
all right. Well, want to say thank you to everybody watching. Alice, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think that it's very important for everyone. There are various Zoom meetings at different levels coming up during the course of this week. The city council, the school board. There is a Zoom conference with the elected officials from Washington County for people to have input with them. You have a voice. These are your representatives. Use your voice to speak to them. That is extremely important that you be heard. So, pick whatever you want. If you want to be at city council, you want to be at town board, at select board, you want to be at the county Zoom meeting with the elected officials, but show up because 85% of anything is showing up. And it's important that your voice be heard.
I agree. All right. Well, with that, I want to say thank you for watching the Barry Beat podcast live from Fly in the Wall Production Studios, Main Street, Barry, Vermont. And we hope you have a lovely week and a great Memorial Day.